Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown in beautiful Shenzhen, China, for another informative, entertaining, and necessary podcast and article to understand your world and how it works and where you are going. This one is entitled Baba Beijing and Big Bear Smack Down Uncle Sam and Iran and Venezuela. As usual, there's tons of hyperlinks, pictures, etc. It is worth your while to get to the source article, which will be listed with the SoundCloud and YouTube recordings. The picture at the top shows the Chinese, Russian, Iranian, and Venezuelan flags flying in the breeze, and the byline says, what happened to the good old days of the Cold War when rich imperial America was doing battle with poor agrarian Russia and China, and Iran and Venezuela were corrupt fascist regimes serving the interests of American capital? And the article goes on. Let's start. There was a time, 1945 to 1990, when America ruled the non-communist world like a brutal gang leader, bullying its many poodle states with unlimited military and financial power, whipping and threatening them into obedience. The joke in post-war diplomatic circles still is that the United States doesn't have any friends, just clients, and abused and browbeaten ones at that. My, oh my, how times have changed. Russia has gone from a Chicago boys disaster capitalism failed state to an independent, confident, economically growing, superior military global power. Russia beat the West hands down in Ukraine, reabsorbing Crimea, and essentially doing the same thing with the eastern third of the country. Except for most of Eastern Europe, Russia has kept much of the former USSR in military and economic unity. With quiet support from China, Russia has whipped NATO in Syria and will now likely turn towards Iraq. America has been working overtime to split India and Brazil away from their commitments to BRICS, but the bear and the dragon came out even stronger and BRICS never more cohesive after the recent summit in Xiamen, China earlier this month. China is nominally the second largest economy in the world, and in purchasing power parities, known as PPP, it is the king of the globe. It too has a modern, fearsome army with technology running out the yazoo. Did you know yazoo is a Chinese word? It means, Uncle Sam can kiss my yellow ass goodbye. I'm just kidding. Let's continue. America's ridiculous incursion into the South China Sea in a show of force against Baba Beijing has turned into an embarrassing farce as, quote, the greatest deep-water navy in the Milky Way, end of quote, has had 4 serious accidents this year, causing a number of deaths and much physical and reputational damage. Speculation that China's increasingly sophisticated navy has caused these mishaps with cyber jamming and or false GPS signals as an elliptical retort has to be taken seriously. If true, it would be a hallmark Sino reaction to boisterous bullying in its own backyard. Don't believe me? Check out the 5th of the 36 stratagems of war, and it is to loot a burning house, just for starters. There's a picture of the USS Fitzgerald badly damaged, and the byline says, the USS Fitzgerald, badly damaged and killing a number of American sailors, is just one of 4 serious U.S. naval accidents this year. Did China cause them by cyber jamming, or is the U.S. Navy just that incompetent? Continuing on, as America's dictatorial grip on its poodle states weakens, Russia and China are no longer the poor, mostly agrarian communist countries that were cut off by the West during the Cold War. Back then, imperial America kept these 2 red giants isolated while it robbed the developing world with impunity, thanks in large part to the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and was able to use all that human capital and natural resources to churn out half the world's GNP. The United States was planet Earth's biggest exporter, creditor, and manufacturer. The U.S. dollar was first tied to the gold standard, then the OPEC oil barrel. Those days are long gone, baby. Now China's GNP is leapfrogging America's. China is the world's biggest exporter, creditor, and manufacturer, while America is the world's largest debtor and can brag about the hugest trade deficit black hole in the universe. Russia and China are the two biggest gold miners, and both countries are more and more selling and buying hydrocarbons and everything else in their own currencies, diminishing the U.S. dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. China and Russia are starting to really pile it on to the greenback. China is the world's biggest oil and gas importer, and Beijing just announced a Chinese RMB, the Chinese currency, renminbi, denominated oil contract backed by convertible physical gold. As a result, from continent to continent, America is desperately playing whack-a-mole with these two Asian allies. China is a huge supporter of socialist Venezuela, loaning it tens of millions of dollars to build low-income housing, hospitals, school, and connective infrastructure. The terms are soft, and Venezuela pays it back in oil. As the American color revolution to overthrow Venezuela's anti-West government and mass support for independence has taken its toll, Beijing is playing it cool with the loan repayments to offer relief to the people while continuing to build and build. At the current United Nations confab, where Donald Trump showed America's true colors, true long-standing imperial colors, China is showing open support for Venezuela and its long-standing opposition to the West's incessant color revolution playbook. Then, in a direct threat to the U.S. dollar's hegemony as the global petrocurrency, Venezuela is now pricing its oil in Chinese renminbi. After both Iraq and Libya priced their hydrocarbon exports in euros, they got invaded and destroyed by the West. America is trying to do the same via financial war against Venezuela and North Korea. Venezuela and North Korea is building hydrogen bombs to keep itself safe. Russia is not sitting on its hands in Venezuela either, loaning the Bolivarian Revolution $17 billion in exchange for oil. In another clarion call for the American dollar's eventual demise, Russia's President Vladimir Putin just ordered all Russian ports to quit using the greenback as currency and switch to rubles. Another socialist country that America is trying to castrate and destroy is Iran. As soon as the ink dried on the hard-fought multilateral Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, abbreviated JCPOA, to limit Iran's nuclear development, America began reneging on it with typical imperial exceptionalism. To say that Russia and Iran are brothers in arms is an understatement. Both are fiercely anti-American and rebuke Eurangloland, which is my coinage, meaning NATO plus Australia and New Zealand, for its craven obedience to Uncle Sam's boot heel. Iran and Russia continue to work hand in glove to give NATO and its proxy army ISIS, which really should be called USIS, USIS, standing for United States Islamic Satrap, the final death knell it deserves in Syria while expanding into Iraq. Russian-Iranian trade is exploding using oil for goods swaps. Russia's sales of its vaunted and in the West much feared S-300 anti-missile system makes any thought of the West's usual war and plunder game plan in Iran a moot point. Zionist, genocidal, nutjob Israel keeps threatening Iran, but now it is all just racist imperial bluster. At the UN General Assembly this week, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu blathered Iran's name 57 times. China and Iran are also tight as anti-West ticks. Beijing just extended the equivalent of a $10 billion line of credit to Iran so that China can continue to build infrastructure in country, denominated in Chinese renminbi and euros, to circumnavigate Uncle Sam's suffocating and illegal sanctions. This is on top of a previous equivalent $15 billion line of credit and a $4.2 billion one to build Chinese high-speed train lines. Even America's occupied ally, South Korea, got into the act, extending an €8 billion loan to Iran. America's supine EU clients, Austria, Denmark, and Germany, are negotiating a $22 billion loan to Iran. Amazingly, the imperial United States is cutting off its nose in spite of its face, even wanting to cancel sales of Boeing planes to Iran. Talk about hubris. Here comes Airbus and eventually China to the rescue. Iranian money talks and American imperial shit walks when it comes to doing deals, since much of the world is firmly in the capitalist camp. Iran may be socialist, but the Persian people have been trading longer than the ancient Greeks and are business people par excellence. Iran is a country vastly wealthy in hydrocarbons, which everybody wants to buy, while at the same time its wise leadership is creating a rapidly expanding middle class that wants to buy imported consumer goods and have 21st century infrastructure to boot. You would never know all this behind the Great Western Firewall, but Americans look like the arrogant imperial fools that they are. China and Russia are right there to rub their noses in anti-West dog doo-doo while changing the world for the better. Not only better for their citizens, but better for all of humanity. Better even for Euranglolanders, including Americans. Please break the news to them gently by posting this article and podcast on your social media and share it with your workmates, family, and friends. They all need to prepare for the happy day of reckoning. Just think of it. The fall of an empire. It's going to be beautiful. And the Schadenfreude? Ode to joy. And lay it on me, darling. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland in Shenzhen, signing out, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.